But basically, in Tongwynlais, I've often had this conversation with one of my friends who used to work for the local authority. The last place people thought of spending money was Tongwynlais. I'm sure that'd be annoying to some of the local councillors, but that was the truth. The only thing that was ever put in Tongwynlais by the Elgar County Council was the Dutch barn behind the school, which when we were in the youth club, was used for five-side football usually, and all the other facilities, if you like, were very homespun. The footballers used the park, and very often had to put their own goalposts up, but after time there were permanent goalposts there. But there was no rugby pitch after the old rugby pitch behind what is now the Hilton Hotel, to the side of it rather. That was taken away to build Tongwynlais in roughly 1947, 48. And so Garfield Llewellyn, during I think it was early 60s, decided they're going to have a rugby team again. So that was resurrected. I played in that game. And it was a selection of boys who'd always wanted to play for the Ton, who played for other clubs. And we played against the Glamorgan Wanderers Select, and we had to get posts put up because there was no post in the park. No change in facilities, so we had to use the facilities in the village hall, which is basically the side annex, a couple of benches and a couple of tin baths because there are no showers. And that's where that's how we restarted Tongwynlais Rugby Club. And I think we borrowed Machan's kit to play in, and Glamorgan Wanderers Select was sprinkled with old Ton players from the previous team, like Dudley Watkins, Peter Brewer, and Joe Shepstone, son, and one or two others I can't remember now. Malcolm Thomas, and there were one or two others, I can't remember all their names now. However, we played that sort of inaugural game, and then the team was set up in the old Cardiff and District setup. But in the pub, there was a couple of landlords, probably with an eye to business, creative business, decided we were going to have a series of tournaments. And we had the Cardiff Castle versus the Lewises. Well, in those days, the Lewises was a completely different sort of set of clientele to the Cardiff Castle and the Old Ton. If I can put it politely, it was a little bit more genteel in the Lewises, but a slightly older clientele and more mixed. The Cardiff Castle was the unofficial headquarters of the rugby club and the football club, which meant that when we played the game, they turned out with people who'd either played to a reasonable level rugby or football. Was the Lewis's arms team, which I was playing in, was what you might say a bit ad hoc, to say the least. And we got absolutely hammered, but we all enjoyed it, you know. And but it was a bit of fun. And of course, having got hammered, we then said, right, I bet we can beat you lot, because we didn't have a Skittles team in the Lewis's, but there were about 3, I think, at the time in the Cardiff Castle. We said, right, I bet we can beat you lot at Skittles, because what we did have in the Lewis's were a lot of bowlers, like Garfield Llewellyn, and also Fred Wilmot, Cliff Barlow, Bill Roberts, I can't remember them all now, Phil Edwards, and we absolutely hammered this composite team from all the Skittle teams in the castle, and we played at the castle. We absolutely hammered him at Skittles. I got a photo somewhere, but I got a photograph of the venerable Lewis's Arms team here, and an action shot of a line-out during the match. But one of the people in that photograph there, the action shot, Bryn Collins, never worked again properly. he played prop. And he walked around like this for years. And another guy, John Buffett, who was another sort of wag of the village, a real character, former semi-pro soccer player, but had badly broken legs and all that, ended up propping against my mother's cousin, Gordon Matthews, who at that time had just finished 12 years as being captain and, could have been a Welsh international had he taken the game more seriously. Of Pontypridd, he was captain of Pontypridd for many years. A bit of a legend, He's propping against John Buffett. I can remember him in one scrimmage just shaking him around like that, like a rag doll. And then there was a cribbage tournament, 9-card Don tournament, a darts tournament, and a cricket tournament in which we cut a strip with somebody's old push lawnmower, a strip. But the grass was still about this long. So, we're going to cut all over the place. And so we decided only gentle donkey drops and spin bowling, no fast bowling. And when I went into bat, I took card, I looked up, and Roger Walters had already let the ball go. And it was a beamer, and it hit me straight between the eyes. And I just went down like a sack of spuds, And I remember Tony Feddersi stuck me in the back of his car and took me down to the Royal Infirmary. And who should be there was my Craddock on duty. So he stuck me right to the front of the queue in the casualty, because Mike was a radiographer then. And but there my eyes had shut. And I can see it now. I was looking down when they did. They nicked me there because I bled internally. They let me fall. Sort of black jelly came out. It's horrible. However, so that was that match. I was there for about 30 seconds and I never saw the rest of the game. But, it was one of those things. But so that was the sort of homespun stuff we used to do. Because, the facilities were very, very... We could go there now. They've got a changing rooms on the park now, but the park had about 3 items of... There was a swing, a roundabout and a slide. And not a lot else. I can remember Cliff Davis reportedly in the press when they had the urinals put up by the bus stop at the top of the village. Apparently, he swung it with his impassioned speech. He said, "Have I got to wet myself coming to this meeting on a regular basis for the want of a urinal in Tongwynlais?" I've got another funny anecdote. I've got to say this, right? I was about 15 or 16 at the time, I can remember, and I was going to Cardiff to watch Cardiff rugby, and the bus stop was down by the church in those days, and all the women were there now with their shopping bags, and it was about 12, 1 o'clock, because everyone used to go on what they called the 2 o'clock special, which either went to Cardiff football or Cardiff rugby, but all the women used to get on to go shopping, either with or without their husbands, right? And suddenly, out of the blue, Black Maria came in from the Taffswell side, a Black Maria came up from the Queen Street side, and from Herman Hill, and one came up from the Witch's End, 4 cars and these Black Marias. And the police all got out, or dived into the Old Ton, where Ike Stevens, who was then the landlord, had kept the book. Of course, he's only committed an offence, really, under the social law, which in those days was about 30 bob, and would be paid for by the bookie. But they were obviously out to make a bit of a statement to police, to stop this nest of den of thieves, gamblers, right? And we were going, if somebody came out, who was a known character, look at him, shame, and her at home with those 6 kids, and there was all that kind of stuff going on. Like, for shame, and suddenly, out comes my father, his brother Hubert, and was all these women are being called for shame. Their husbands were coming out because they'd been in putting bets on. And they all ended up in Richard's Magistrates Court, right? And Edgar Watkins, when his other cap, he was the local magistrate. So he said to the woman on the bench with him, look, I can't do this. I know all these people, they're my neighbours and friends. So she took the case, and Edgar sat there. And he said, I think there was 32 people. Because they also knocked on doors because people had their names on their bets. They didn't have nom de plumes, you know. And of course, Gwenny used to be the bookie. We were Rosie's mother at one time. And before that, and anyway, I think it was Gomer Charles, the bookie. I think it was him, or Sherman's, I can't remember now. And he agreed to pay all the fines. And I think it was 30 bob each or something like that, which was a lot of money then. Except for one person, Owlagog, conducting his own defence. He got off. Edgar Watkins said he couldn't stop laughing all the way home. Yeah, so yeah, I had to say that story. I suddenly remembered it. Oh dear. But you know, most of the sport you went to see it. But anyway, the other sport in the village, you just did it in the schoolyard or in the street, because virtually no cars. I mean, up until the time I was a teenager, there were only about 8 or 10 cars in the whole village. Well, Garfield had one, and Elgar Collins had one. I remember one of the Brookmans had one, Billy Brookman. But Herbert Butcher had one, Robert Milk. There were quite few on the ground, so you could play in the streets. Because, in fact, if your ball rolled out onto Merthyr Road, the main road, the A470 now, you obviously looked, but the amount of traffic was very, very small, really. So, but there were certainly no park cars, so you could play in the street.